camshaft, the pistons, main bearing caps, and a couple other parts we're going to be putting in the chemical washer just to get these done for the 383. Again, we're not building this engine just yet for Alex's Duster, but someday rebuild this engine and put in something else. Alright, so now, as you saw, we loaded up the crankshaft and a couple extra parts, the old main cap and the 383, chemical wash on them so that when we rebuild the engine someday we can still use them and we're fresh to go. Our timing cover, our water pump, and some of the old parts that obviously you're not going to reuse your camshaft, you're not going to reuse all these old stamp rockers, but we'll keep them for cool water, valve covers, we'll get those cleaned up over there in the burner. But for now, we're just going to get the engine stand part off of the 383 block, and that thing will get cleaned up too. And then we will finish taking down the top of our sleeves on our 440. Then we're going to go through and actually bore out to get it to standard bore. Obviously, with it being sleeve right now, those sleeves are smaller in diameter than the actual standard bore size of 4.320, the diameter of that bore size. So we'll get that done here in a minute. We're just going to go ahead and get our block over and get that thing washed off. Let's get our engine stand bolts off here real quick. Well, Roger's wrestling the 440 onto its other side to get the top part of those sleeves down and get this block and part. Bring her over to the burner. Alright, taking the 383 over to the oven, bake her out a little bit, get all the old nastiness off of it, as well as some of the other parts we got from the engine. Load her up. Oh yeah.
Okay, any iron plugs? One here. Okay, we'll just melt it up. We're easy. Now, you can go drag your cylinder heads over one at a time.
Yeah. Break down our cylinder heads, and then we're gonna get these cleaned up too. Like that?
Well, it helps break the keepers loose from the cleaner.
Okay.
And glide it here. And we're basically big C-clamp with an air cylinder on it. A little bit of play there, but I don't want to get too much. Sometimes you don't get enough stroke out of it. Press the spring. Put them on there, got the button. This one's trying to hang up, so there's no pressure on it. On there.
That's all it is, just those two little heads.
They're tapered. You keep wedges them pretty stinking tight. heat and cool cycles. They're supposed to be soft rubber. No soft. They break when it allows it to suck oil down the valve guide. And it also winds up dropping off of this stuff and dropping down into the rest of the engine, which can cause some problems.
Actual tool?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's for that. Brass hammer, it's not a big deal. What you're trying to do is disrupt where that thing's pushing on it.
Block and our heads and some other parts loaded up. Making fire now, Roger says. Once our block and our heads come out, they're gonna look like this, like they've just been through a campfire. Gonna be nasty still with a bunch of carbon and other crap on there. Then we'll take them here into the blasting cabinet, hit them with some media, get them all cleaned off, and then they can go into the chemical wash and the jet wash, and everything will look nice and clean and shiny like it's new. Everything really clean throughout this process. Any of those little shavings that fall off of the machine down the top of those screws, just get underneath that surface of the actual boring machine itself or the block. They won't seat properly, and then when you go and cut them, you get a slight angle, and you want to cut true and straight. So being meticulous to be clean. Down the tops of these sleeves over here. Alright, now we'll just double check with our feeler gauge and make sure the block is sitting truly flush down on the fixture. Nice and tight.
I didn't mention it yesterday, but you should check both sides because it can be tight on one side and still be jacked up on the other side. So
right, that makes sense.
We're good to go.
Cool. Some of our smaller parts, like our pistons, the old hardware, the bolts and everything, the end caps that we're not going to actually need to bake over in the baking chamber. We've already got these chemically washed. Now I come here and rinse them off one more time, take them outside, going to let them dry off in the sun, and then we can take them over to the blasting cabinet, hit them with some media, clean them up, make them look nice. These pistons we'll never reuse, they'll just be cool wall art, but the rods, main end caps, those will get reused on the 383, but the pistons themselves, the camshaft, it's just cool wall art. It's something else to have at home. And yeah, we'll take it from there. So we've got a bunch of things going on at once right now. We're cleaning, we're baking, we're machining, picking some ass in here. And 5 minutes later now in the hot summer Utah sun, these are nice and dried up and we can get these media blasted down looking nice and clean and cool. Oh, hey there. So we're just going to be pressing out the pins on these pistons because we're going to save the pistons just for cool wall art, like we've been saying, but we're going to maintain these rods because these are still good for that 383 for when we rebuild it someday. So like we've been talking about, we're kind of juggling and doing two things at once. We're tearing down all the old parts from the 383 still to have those ready for what we might need for rebuilding it someday, but also machining at 440. So it's just a Mopar engine building city up in here. Crankshaft and all these other bolts and parts in here are nice and chemically washed, so we're going to rinse these off real quick just to cool them down a little bit, and we'll take this outside, let it dry out in the sun, and then we can go ahead and get these media blasted too. And now we're just going to blast some of our parts that we want to maintain for the future build. So these connecting rods are getting set in here, and we'll see how nice and shiny and clean they look here in a minute. Here just to show you guys, here's one freshly done. How nice that looks compared to one that just came out of the chemical wash. Hell yeah. Let's see if I can do this one-handed for you guys and show you some of this carbon coming off the top of this piston. Crankshaft for the 383. So we're gonna have this nicely finished off so it's ready for a rebuild someday, and we're going through with a flap disc and taking down any really big burrs or stuff left over from when it was forged, like stuff like here and things like this that could chip off and wind up getting picked up in your oil pickup tube and, you know, ruining the cylinder wall or blocking up your engine. So we're gonna go through and deburr all this stuff, get rid of all these sharp edges, and make this thing really nice and smooth so it can be turned out and ready for its next life someday. And as I'm working, we're being really careful to not get our flap disc on our main journals or rod journals. If this catches just a little bit, it's not going to be the end of the world because it's just going to have to be machined down and resurface, but we want to avoid that, so we're going to go really carefully, catching all these sharp edges and getting everything nice and deburred and smooth, so we'll be good to go in the future. Bit of metal right here. If this was to fall off, this can get stuck in your oil pickup tube or run up a cylinder wall or something like that, and so that's why we want to clean up all these surfaces and get this thing perfect, or nearly perfect. There we go, nice and smooth. I have gone through and freshly deburred all of the little rough edges and everything on this crankshaft, so it's good to go for the future rebuild. Float clamp switch on the boring bar broke. Roger's taking care of that really easily. Just went ahead and machined a new one because when you're a machinist, you just machine all the stuff you need to machine stuff with. Roger finished up his custom knob for our boring bar. Now we're getting the tops down of our last 4 cylinders, our beautiful 440, and then we can get this thing bored back down to standard 4.320 diameter cylinders. Then get everything honed in, take it from there. Alex is over here getting our media blast kit repair on the crankshaft. Being careful not to get it on the journals or anything, but just getting the counterweights and everything nice and cleaned up. And here's our freshly media blasted crankshaft for the 383, so we'll have this nice and ready to go for the next time it's rebuilt. guys, welcome to August 12th. This is day 4 on what we're doing here. We've got the remainder of the parts that we got in the cleaning furnace last night. 383 cylinder block, the heads, some valve covers, timing cover, water pump, some other things that we just wanted to melt off any other crap that was on it. Pretty much all the stuff that gets stuck up here in the water jackets from the years of this engine running and just kind of burning it all out so it just dries it up. I think Roger said this thing runs at like 300,000 BTUs, so it's insanely hot. You know, it's coming out looking like it was in a campfire, so we'll get these pulled out, clean them off over there, and then I'll take them over to the media blasting chamber, get that metal looking nice and shiny like you saw yesterday we did with the crankshaft and all the other parts. So we've got that left in store today. Finishing up what we were doing over here on our 440 block because Roger had to machine a new piece because our float clamp button is being faulty, and this boring bar actually pushes compressed air under this piece here, which weighs hundreds of pounds, and actually makes it float slightly and easy to move around. And then when you clip it back down, it locks itself into place. And then these little alignment bars pop out, you get yourself centered, and then you go and cut. So we'll get the rest of our sleeves turned down, and then we can actually bore this thing back down to standard bore, 4.320, and then we can go and hone it on the honing machine and start getting all our parts in. Alright, let's get some of these parts out. Valve covers nice and crispy. Go ahead and repaint these, use these on a future build or something like that. Our cylinder heads here, looking nice and crispy. You can see how it actually just melted through this old freeze plug right here. The wall of the freeze plug was so weak that it just got corroded over the years, and then it's just nothing left. Actually, that might have been a rubber one so I put in, but nonetheless, out. And second cylinder head. Bring this guy over here and get them cleaned off. And then after this, we'll take it outside, let it dry out in the sun, and then go media blast it. Alrighty. Here's our cylinder block after it's been cooked and baked really good. You can see all the dried up old oil and this carbon and stuff that's left in the block. So this will get washed over there, and then we can media blast it. That's left of a gasket. Let's go for a ride. Cylinder heads of the 383 are washed off. We baked them outside, and now we're just cleaning them up. The bottom side of these heads are going to get decked anyway and machined down, but we still want to clear out all of our combustion chambers. We'll get new hardened seats in here and of course do all the valve job and everything. For now, still get it nice and clean. Here they are. Cylinder heads for the 383. Nice and cleaned up. Now these things can be ported, get the hardened seats on there and everything else we would do in the future. But for now, these will go into storage until we're ready to use them for our future 383 build. We'll finish up here on the engine block and then we can get over on the 440. Just gonna grab that big old hunk of iron and throw it here in the media blaster and then get that block done, and then we'll have our heads, our block, our rods, our end caps and everything ready for that full rebuild one day.
Double check the size close to it, make sure it, you know, fits good and tight.
Yeah.
Sometimes they fool you and they let loose right when they shouldn't. You won't like that.
You ever had one hit the deck?
No, I've had it pretty damn close.
Yeah, I bet that will scare the shit out of you.
Yeah.
We're blasting our 383 block here. Getting this thing cleaned down too. It's pretty fun manhandling 200 and something pounds of cast iron in this thing. Do it. And then our engine block is nice and media blasted, and we can bag this up and spray a little WD-40 on it so it doesn't flash rust and save that for the future build. Alex showed up with her badass power wagon, and over here are the heads and valve covers, nicely bagged and tagged and ready for rebuild. We love our Dodges. Just a little bit. This 55 T-Bird I've been helping Roger out with too while we've been working on Alex's car. He's done a whole bunch of custom suspension, exhaust work, rebuilt the whole engine on it, and just a number of things. And I'm helping out getting the interior put back together and kind of getting doors aligning. We put new hinges on it. He machined new pins for it so it opens really nice. And I'm gonna get the door seal on it real quick. And once this car is done and out of here, it opens up a spot for Alex's Duster to come over here. So that's my motivation to finish this car, get her out of here so we can bring the Duster right here and just do all the freaking work on it once we get it here. So it's gonna be really cool. While I'm here working on the T-Bird and Roger's over there getting our 440 ready to get decked, Alex is over here at home and we're playing around with looking at what we're gonna order for our front K-member, and I think this is the kit we're gonna go with. So that's gonna do a really nice job of replacing the whole front K-member. We're gonna go tubular on everything, and then you just have to add some adapter plates to the K-member for the big block, but that's what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna order it up here in a minute. Hey, Roger, we got our 440 now over here to get it decked, right?
Yeah.
Ordered. Mostly disappeared. Elliot, what's that? Oh man.